Good afternoon, Paul. Could you test your audio video, please?
Yeah, testing. Can
I
you
can
hear me
see
okay?
you. Can you just do the audio again?
Yeah, testing, testing. Checking my microphone. Am I coming through for you?
The Toronto Music Advisory Committee. Clerk has informed me that we have quorum, so I'm going to call this meeting of TMAC to order. No gavel today, so just, yeah, no, it's okay. We're good. This is the 7th meeting of the term, and we're holding it hybrid in person as well as using the city's WebEx, which is online, with members of staff here in the room and also connected by video conference or calling in. As always, members of the public are welcome to attend this meeting in person or remotely. And we have a deputation today. I think they are online as well, so that's great. Because we're both in person and remote, we ask for your patience with any delays and technical issues. I'd like to remind folks to keep their mics muted and their videos turned off. That's the staff, unless they're needed to answer questions or speak to the committee. And if members wish to ask questions to staff or to speak, just let me know, raise your hand. I'll put your name on a list and we'll go from there. I'd like to remind people that if you want to table a motion today on any of our agenda items, just send it in an email with your draft text to our fabulous clerks here. You do that at tmac@toronto.ca. And when we're voting on an item, I'd ask you to turn on your video, raise your hand, indicate your vote. If we're doing a recorded vote, I'll ask you to state whether you're in favor or opposed. So we'll start with the land acknowledgement, and that goes as follows. Although we're in different locations, the Toronto Music Advisory Committee acknowledges the land we are meeting on is a traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Time to confirm the minutes. May I have a motion to confirm the minutes of the meeting on February 18th, 2025? I'll get that from our Vice Chair, Sean, who was chairing that day, I think, as well. All in favor? Carried? Fabulous. Any opposed? Nope, we're carried. Before we move on to the 5 business items for today, I would recommend that if it's okay with everyone here and online, we do MA 7.4, noise monitoring for events, as the first item, because we do have a speaker, a deputant here, and I think we have staff in the room as well to take any questions. Is everyone okay with that reordering of the agenda? I'll do that one first. Seeing consent, looking online, everyone's good. All right, in favor of that? All in favor? That carries. Clerks are satisfied. So with that, we are going to kick it off with MA 7.4, noise monitoring for events. We are joined in the room. I can see their very sharp uniforms, our friends from Municipal Licensing and Standards. They're going to provide an update on the refinement of the noise monitoring process, including enhancements to communicate better with event organizers. Do we do this before we do the deputant?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we've got Ingrid on the line, so you'll hear from staff, and then we'll go to you. And with that in mind, I'm going to turn it over to our staff team.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mitch Thibault. I'm Policy and Planning Advisor with Municipal Licensing and Standards. And I have my colleague Leo Bucko here as the Acting Manager of the Dedicated Noise Team. We're going to do a quick presentation. I know it's been circulated to the committee members on kind of a follow-up discussion that we had a few months ago with the committee on noise monitoring and noise exemption permits generally. So just give me a moment while I share this online. One sec, sorry. Okay, just want to confirm everyone online can see that. Good. Okay, and we'll try to be as brief as possible. I know you have access to this deck, and then we're happy to take any questions here, or again, Mike can help field any questions if you have any follow-ups after discussion on the item. So generally, we're going to talk about noise exemption permits and noise monitoring that might be required as part of those permits. So as many of you know, NEPs or noise exemption permits can be requested for events or activities that might temporarily contravene or exceed the provisions that are in the noise bylaw. I think much of what we'll discuss today is on the noise exemption permits for amplified sound. So a few months ago, we came to this committee to provide a general update on noise monitoring, specifically that it can be required as one of those permits. And TMAC requested a few things to work with the music office to enhance some of our communications with event organizers and propose a few refinements operationally to our noise monitoring processes, and also as part of the 2025 budget to explore reductions in some of the noise monitoring fees. Just a brief overview about NEPs generally. We've seen like a 50% increase 2024 compared to 2022 in the number of applications. Of course, I think 2022, some of those numbers were, of course, impacted by the pandemic, but we have seen the past couple of years a general increase in the number of permits submitted to the dedicated noise team. Recent changes that were made to the noise exemption permit process, we did a pretty broad review of the noise bylaw throughout 2023, discussed with this committee. In 2023, we introduced some activity-based exemption permit process to differentiate between lower and higher impact activities, required some additional conditions for those higher impact activities, and also amended some of the existing conditions. I think notably we made some changes to the decibel levels, having those being measured from the property line of the event instead of closer to the source. A quick note on fees. What we'll talk about today, noise monitoring might be required for an event, and additional fees are charged for staff time based on a cost recovery basis. Application fees for exemption permits are waived if the applicant is a charity, nonprofit organization, or a grassroots cultural organization. And then all relevant fees for NEPs are waived if the applicant's an agency, board, commission, or division of the City of Toronto. Just a quick plug about the NEP process in a change that we've been working on this year. Currently, all applications for NEPs are sent through to this general noise email account. And we are finally, in the 21st century, we're modernizing, we're gonna have an online application portal for submission of NEPs, which is very exciting. And that will be launched next week, and we'll send out some more formal communications on that through Mike and EDC. This online portal will also be the way in which councillors receive information and approve permits, which we also hope helps streamline the review and approval process on their end. And also fees will be able to be processed online through a new payment portal. So we are happy to take more questions about this, but we're very excited that this is finally something that will be available to applicants. But just generally, for the noise exemption permit process, there are some screening criteria that are referenced by staff to determine the appropriate level of noise exemption permit. Things like expected attendance, event equipment, and the type of equipment. I know last time we heard some feedback from committee members that we needed to amend those criteria, and we're working with Mike to make those changes and implement them by June 1st. And as I mentioned, for an NEP for amplified or instrument sound, the bylaw allows for those maximum decibel levels that are measured at the property or the lot line. And just to reiterate, per the bylaw, permits are also subject to a review by the local councillor, and the councillors may approve the application as submitted, request some modifications, or deny the application. And those authorities and permissions are outlined in the noise bylaw, which is approved by council. Okay, specifically on amplified sound noise exemption permits, I think we chatted about most of this last time we came to committee, but just a reminder that the application fees kind of range depending on which level is determined for that specific permit. The required documentation is noted there. We typically require like a site plan or a noise mitigation plan if it's a higher impact event. And just noting that for level 1, level 2, noise exemption permits, the councillor has 14 calendar days to approve or deny, or the city will automatically approve. But a change was made by council during our last review that for those level 3 permits, the councillor's office, there's not a specific timeline for them to approve or deny the permit. Okay, so as I've noted, these are the current screening criteria for amplified sound. Exemption permits, I won't go to too much detail here. And as I mentioned, we are making some changes to a few of these, notably the expected attendance. I think we heard we need to break this down a bit more, which we are doing in coordination with EDC, and also just to clarify some of the equipment amplification things, breaking that down into a bit more detail. And we can chat a bit more about that if you have any additional feedback about things we should include in this criteria. Oops. Okay, so to get to noise monitoring, and I think a chunk of what we're going to chat about today, as a condition of a noise exemption permit, city staff or a council's office may request noise monitoring, and this can occur in two different ways. One is self-monitoring, so requesting that an applicant monitor decibel levels during the event, and take measurements at particular intervals, and then provide that information back to the dedicated noise team within 48 hours of the event. The second is staffed noise monitoring. So when city staff might attend a portion of an event to take measurements and ensure compliance with a noise exemption permit. Permit holders would be invoiced based on the number of staff that are determined for that event on an hourly basis. And just to note that the charities, not-for-profits, and grassroots organizations are exempt from the application fees, but monitoring fees may be applied depending on the exemption permit and the event. Okay, so we're going to go through a few concerns, I think, issues raised by committee members last time we were here. I think a lot about staff scheduling, as I mentioned, some edits to the screening criteria, and also how we would follow up post-event. And we're going to go through a few of the operational changes we've made or will be making by June 1st to respond to some of these concerns. All right, so for noise monitoring fee amounts and staff scheduling, I think some feedback that we heard from committee members, which is a concern about the use of overtime hours for monitoring that might be more costly than standard hours, and that generally monitoring should be scheduled in a manner that reduces costs as much as possible to event organizers. To respond to this, we're making a few different operational changes. We'll be amending our operating procedure for noise exemption permits and monitoring to clarify and ensure that monitoring fees are only issued for the time staff are on site, not for any prep or debrief to minimize costs. We'll also be coordinating better with organizers to set out monitoring for only a portion of the event, not the entire duration. We think these two things in particular are really clear measures to help reduce any costs. We do not want to be sending excessive fee and invoices to event organizers to do monitoring, and we're going to try and streamline this process as much as possible. In addition to that, we'll be trying to implement strategies to reduce the amount of overtime pay where possible. I think during the warmer summer months, we are, as you can imagine, dealing with an increased amount of noise complaints, and our staff are usually tied up responding to regular service request volume. So overtime might be applied in monitoring, but we're going to make our best efforts to reduce the amount of overtime paid where possible. In addition to that, we'll also be trying to combine events that are in close proximity. So the same staff will be attending monitoring at locations, just making sure that we're being as efficient as possible. And just wanted to note, in addition to that City Council did not reduce the noise monitoring fees through the 2025 operating budget, and they are the fees that were approved back in the beginning of 2024. So timeline for determining monitoring. I think we heard from some of you who are involved in an event organizing that we should establish a timeline for when we're working with organizers and applicants if monitoring is required and what those potential costs might be. So we'll be amending our operating procedure to confirm monitoring costs and structure within 7 calendar days of receiving a fully complete noise exemption permit application. Just noting that sometimes those timelines might be delayed if there is a bit of back and forth with the councilor's office during the review of the noise exemption permit. And we're going to continue to encourage operators to submit NEPs as soon as possible when planning some of those events. So noise complaints during noise exemption permit application and post-event reports. So I think we heard last time that organizers should be informed about any noise complaints received by the city during for the duration of the event, and communication should be done soon after the event. We are dealing with a significant volume of noise exemption permits, the majority of which do not have any compliance issues. But the change that we're going to be making here is this: we'll make best efforts to send kind of a post-event report to the applicant if any noise complaints are sent through for the duration, during the duration of the event. And just noting that if we are present and monitoring at the event, we are made aware of any complaints that are submitted to 311 in real time, and we'll raise those with the event organizer. All right, this is another concern that we heard back in November, which is just being a bit proactive in determining the property line or lot line of where we'll be doing and conducting monitoring, and working more directly with the applicant to determine that appropriate location. And that's something that we will be working to do, particularly with a focus on those level 3 higher impact permits. I think usually as part of those level 3 permits, we're getting a site plan, so we'll be working with the applicant to identify the best property line or lot line location at that event. Of course, noting that a bit of flexibility might be required if things change closer to the event. And lastly, I think I mentioned this in a previous slide, but making some edits to the screening criteria. I think just further clarification was needed on a few things. So we will be making a change to that attendance criteria, noting that it's just the highest expected attendance at any particular time of the event. It's kind of the maximum attendance. And then we're also working with Mike and team to make some edits to the equipment and amplification criteria, noting that it's probably unlikely that there will only be one single amplifier. So we'll be making some changes to those criteria to better reflect, I think, the reality of throwing an amplified sound or instrument event, as you could call it. Okay, and next steps, and I'll stop talking and we'll go to the deputy and into some questions. We intend to implement these operational changes by June 1st, and also just to note that that online portal will be open as of next week for submission of noise exemption permits. We'll also be working with Mike in the music office to provide our staff with an orientation on the music and event scene, to make sure we're being collaborative. They're kind of understanding what organizers are going through and kind of the state of the industry. In addition to that, we'll be working with EDC to provide some information on what all the information that was presented today, and noise monitoring, including this new application portal once it's launched. So we'll send out those formal communications as soon as we can next week or the week after. Other than that, of course, staff are always available to answer questions at this general noise email, and there's detailed information on our noise webpage as well. I am sick of hearing my own voice, so I'm going to stop talking, and I'll pass it back to the chair.
Thanks, Mitchell. That was great. So I know we're going to have some questions for you from the committee, but if you want to sit right there and just hit pause, we'll jump over to our deputant. We have one speaker registered for this item, and I believe they are connected online. So if we can get Ingrid Boudet from No More Noise Toronto, we're going to unmute you, and you will have 5 minutes to address the committee, and thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. I'd like to share my content, please.
Sure. We'll
Thank you.
get that going.
Thank you. And we're looking at there. Share. Great. I trust you can all see this.
We got it, Ingrid. So your deck's
Excellent.
up on our screen. I'm going to hit start,
Okay.
and you'll have 5 minutes to
Thank you.
speak to the committee.
Much appreciated. Hello, everyone. I wish I could be with you there today, but noise keeps chasing me out of the city. What can I say? So it's a pleasure to be here and share with you my thoughts on the MA 7.4 noise monitoring for events. So who's No More Noise Toronto? Well, we are focused on the noises that wake us up, keep us up, and disturb us day and night. We're a grassroots organization that is data and process oriented. And we're very pleased. Mitch, I've heard your voice many a time, and we're pleased to be collaborating with MLS, Leo, and Matt, and we're very proud to be on the City of Toronto's External Working Group for the Night Economy. Thank you so much for having me on the panel. I see some familiar faces on the screen today, which was just really nice. So, as I was saying at the panel, we all have a personal relationship to sound. And what is music to some is noise to another. And we have no escape. Earplugs and vibrations and headphones don't work for vibrations. And music has changed. So I have musicians in my family, and I asked them, I said, what instrument produces the deep bass that we have now in our music? And after some thought, they said, a pipe organ. I thought, okay. I also have a chart on the graph here of different decibel weightings in human hearing. And the noise team measures in dBA and dBc because dBc is what we feel. And that deep bass is what we feel. And there's no escape from it. And finally, Toronto's getting louder. Construction's everywhere, and loud vehicles are more common 24 hours a day. So people are kind of getting this noise fatigue. And then back to Mitch's presentation, more noise exemption permits are being issued, a 51% increase. Well, I thought I'd have a look at the maps for the temporary and occasional liquor license applications. And in 2022, 445 were issued. In 2024, 989 were issued, 122% increase. So while I am all for an increase in business and presentation or festivals and all of that, this is an impact on residents. So I'm really glad to be a part of the conversation because the residents' perspective is the opposite side maybe of what you feel, though no one wants music and culture to stop. So when there is an event organizers get a benefit. Participants come for a few hours and get to leave, but residents, they have to listen and they aren't able to enjoy their homes, their backyards, and their parks. And sometimes they can't get to sleep if the noise bylaw is not being adhered to. And I know the MLS team is doing a great job, but it's hard. When people's windows vibrate and there's health impacts from that. And noise reporting, finally, it's frustrating, even though improvements are being made, and noise enforcement is ineffective at reducing the problem right at the time, even though you guys are doing a great job. I know you're trying and you're on the right page. So our recommendations is that, first of all, this was about communicating with event planners. You also need to communicate with the residents. Maybe with this great NEP portal that is coming up, maybe allow people to sign up for e-alerts when a noise exemption permit has been issued in their area, like by postal code. Councilors should include these in their newsletters, especially if they've been approved. Include breaks in the amplified programming. I've heard that some people just get it's 8 hours nonstop and they're not a part of the party. They're not at the party, but they're a part of the party. And so also look at how festivals and events take up public space. To have a festival in the same weekend every year, some people never get to enjoy Labor Day weekend from their homes. Maybe close the street instead of a park. We've got more and more people living in squirrel cages. I am one of them. And I need to get out into my public space. And then area sound level monitoring, and this is going to be my last point. I don't know where my time is. So passive area sound level monitoring is something that can reduce cost and complexity for both the city and event planners. Passive sound level monitoring is basically it transmits sounds levels to MLS. You can see a little flow chart at the bottom, and you can set up permanent or temporary installations to ensure noise bylaw compliance. And then this way, the team is freed up to do the really important work. And this is just something that can then be covered, and you planners don't need to worry about it, and neither does the city. It's just automatically transmitted. So finally, we should be able to have a vibrant city, which doesn't equal loud, but let's also create a better city by reducing noise. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Ingrid. 40 seconds to spare. Well done. Let me look around the horseshoe and see if we have any questions for you.
Please.
Not seeing any in the room. I'm going to jump online, take a look at WebEx. Oh. Yes. While we go on WebEx, we have a question here from Mike Tanner. Over to you, Mike.
Excellent.
Hey, Ingrid, thanks for the presentation. I'm wondering if we may have talked about this, but I can't remember. Have you done any costing on the digital automated sound monitoring devices?
I love how you're hugging the timer there, Mike. I am actually just starting to get to that. I found this Livable Cities is out of Halifax, so it's Canadian made, and I'm looking for an e-introduction to try and find out that information for us.
Thanks. Keep us posted. Appreciate it.
Will do. Thank you.
Taking a look on WebEx. Okay, not seeing any questions there. So that's great. No further questions, Ingrid. Thanks very much for your deputation.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. We are going to come back into committee here, and I have a question list here. John Carew will be our first question, and over to you.
Thank you, Chair. To staff, the self-monitoring component of your presentation, are we providing any training associated with that, or something as simplistic as the piece of equipment that should be used to accurately monitor those noises, especially in the self-monitoring side of things? Because, you know, as I go through the App Store, there is a gazillion noise monitors in our apps. But is that an acceptable method for us to report in on the self-monitoring component?
What we're hoping to do for the self-monitoring, through the chair, is to provide a bit of documentation on what kind of sound level meters can be used. You can maybe use your phone. I mean, I get that. It's going to be, we presently use a level 1 sound level meter. The ones that someone else would use would be a level 2. I'm not sure if the Apple would be recommended as a level 2 or a level 1. But nonetheless, what's more important than that is that as part of what we'll be asking them is to kind of follow a procedure. It's not just the meter that's important. What's important is how you conduct it. You're taking a 10-minute reading. So while you're taking that 10-minute reading, my expectation is someone shouldn't be walking up next to you and start asking questions and talking to you, and you're still taking the readings. It's the process in reality that's more important. I don't think it's significant that it has to be 0.001% accurate. What's more important is, can we get some consistency? Because we will be going out and using self-monitoring maybe in some early stages. Then later on, our officers will come, they'll obtain that information, then they'll continue on doing the monitoring, and they'll be able to see from that self-monitoring how close the numbers are showing up. But I agree, just, you know, pulling an app out of your cell phone and not sure if you're A-weighted, C-weighted, Z-weighted can become difficult. But I don't know if we can provide training, because our officers go through 3 days of training in order to just use the meters and enforce our legislation.
So it sounds, if I may, Mr. Chair, that it sounds like there's going to be some guidelines that you're going to develop to offer those event planners or BIAs or whoever is conducting the event to follow.
Absolutely, guidelines and guidance, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we can make a commitment to do that when we send along this, you know, the updated online portal, some of the information on monitoring. We can make a commitment to add some of those guidelines in as well as part of a broader communication.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair.
And John, if I could just add to what Leo said, I think I was just speaking with Jacqueline. When you guys have developed some of that guidance and guidelines, we can help disseminate that information through our web pages and through our communications as well, so that event organizers are getting it from maybe more than one place.
And I got to expect that the events office, as well as permits go out, that once we go into that electronic licensing and all that stuff, that this will be a part of the bucket list of things to fulfill on behalf of the city. Okay.
Thanks, John. Any other questions? Yes. Jeremy.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to thank staff for your presentation. Yeah, I want to thank also Councillor Malik for supporting our Toronto-born Electric Island event, now entering its 13th season. In Toronto, bringing 50 international acts and giving opportunity to well over 100 local acts perform to a festival audience. And we're pleased to have a clearer process with the sound monitoring. But although since we're a level 3 event, we're always concerned about noise monitoring affecting our audience. You know, it allows to to provide that event at the level acceptable for audience. So we're not getting complaints about the experience from our over 10,000 fans that have paid to be there. And some feedback from our team from this, from your presentation that I've heard is on page 7. It speaks about there's no deadline for the councillor to respond to the, and for like a level 3 event, that's a little bit nerve-wracking when you have put so much into it, so much time and money to get to a point when you don't have an approval yet before we're close to the event is kind of really nerve-wracking. So that's just a feedback that we had from our team.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for those comments and the feedback. I think what was originally recommended by staff was for all the permits to be the 14-day, have the 14-day deadline, and this was a change that was recommended when a report went to council in 2024. I think on the staff end, our commitment is to try and process at least the initial part of the application as quick as possible, particularly for the level 3 permits. And I think with the monitoring piece, confirming that within 7 days, we're hoping that we can get the application and everything set out to the councillor's office as soon as possible. And we do frequent follow-ups if we're not hearing back. And I think this online portal will be a good way for us to follow up really efficiently. And then we've also recently onboarded this week a coordinator as part of the noise team to just focus on the administration of these permits. So I think that'll be like a helpful staff resource as well. But definitely here that's kind of an anxiety-inducing not having a specific timeline. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Any other questions? I'm looking in the room. Now I'm looking online. Yes, okay. Lisa here.
I know it's unrelated, but just wondering if there's an update on the whole noise abatement in indoor venues.
Do you think the noise control plan? Yeah. So those are kind of part of the new licensing framework for bars, restaurants, entertainment venues. So that process and implementation is ongoing throughout 2025. So there's kind of 2 levels of noise control plans. The templates are available on the city's web pages. So maybe I can send that along to the community members after this. And for level 2 plans are likely just required for licensed nightclubs. But staff do have the ability to request it for additional nightlife venues. And that could require some just like general noise dampening, some assessment of equipment. It does depend on the venue and their license type. But I think we've been chatting with Mike, and this whole framework is kind of being implemented throughout 2025. And I think it might be good for some of our licensing and enforcement staff to chat with live music venues specifically to get a sense if there are any issues that are coming up upon license renewal. And we can also get city planning if there are questions on some of the zoning elements too. So I think we can try and make a commitment to pull that together over the next couple of weeks and answer some of those questions about noise abatement, noise control plans, and some of the licensing and zoning questions beyond that. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa. Yes, Jonathan.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for presentation, staff at MLS. I just wanted to recognize that the screening criteria is being refined, as you say, but I just wanted to maybe recommend that the distinction between the single and multiple amplifier and speakers, that this section alone maybe seems a little extraneous. I think that's maybe if there's any section maybe to remove, it might be this section, because currently basically almost any music event that's expecting more than 100 people is going to be high impact. And it's very hard to predict event attendance, especially because many events in public space, especially in city parks, have to be free. So attendance is really hard to predict. So that, not to sound dramatic, but it feels a bit like right now music is being punished. So that's something that I'd like to be taken into consideration when refining the screening criteria.
I appreciate that feedback, and we've chatted with Mike a few times just about that section in particular, and I think we'll consider that option to maybe remove it entirely and rework some of the criteria for sure.
Thank you. Yes, Kristen.
I I just wanted to echo some of the comments made by my colleagues here, especially Jeremy, as a producer of 3 different level 3 events, including one coming up in 3 weeks, which we'll have to do self-monitoring for the first time. Just acknowledging that while it is nice to have the opportunity to self-monitor rather than the very costly city-provided monitoring, I think it will still represent an increase in staffing, because I can't think of a staff who at this point would have those 10 minutes of standing alone, not responding to a walkie-talkie or questions in person. So just want to acknowledge that, as well as the comments that John made about proper training and like how we ensure that we're complying with what self-monitoring even means. And as well as with my colleague Jonathan about, just the fact that this does feel punitive, and at the risk of sounding like a broken record, because I said this recently at the Night Economy Town Hall, just acknowledging that for certainly within my organization, I primarily live and work in the Davenport riding. My staff and artists are also from that riding, and I'd just like to acknowledge that we are all also local residents who support musical activities, and I would just like, beyond the enjoyment of music, there's also the huge economic impact that these events have, including Due West Fest, which will draw up to 1 million people. So just want to have that for the record.
Thanks for those comments. I'm excited for Due West. And I think just on your last point, I know you mentioned at the Night Economy Town Hall too, like having a forum for people who like enjoyed an event that had an NEP. I think with some of these post-event reports, maybe we can look at just establishing some sort of process or a pilot process to do that, to have that reflected in a kind of post-event structure as well. But I think we can take that back and focus on that.
I'm really happy to hear that. I think that's something I said in this room going back as many as 2 years ago, and I'm really encouraged to hear that. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. Checking in online, seeing if we have any. Is that Kim? Over to you.
Hi, thank you. This is more of a general health question. Could you remind me who monitors movie theaters, and in particular, I'm thinking about Scotiabank Arena. I'm one of the lucky yet extremely unfortunate people who happened to be at the Leafs game last night, and maybe I'm just getting old, but I'm curious to know who is monitoring the decibels in there.
That's a great question. I didn't watch the game last night, sorry. I know, I heard it was pretty bad. I would say for like a sports event or for some events at Scotiabank, it wouldn't likely require a noise exemption permit. I think it would likely be generally in compliance with the general provisions of the noise bylaw. I think a lot of noise exemption permits are for more outdoor events. Pride would have a lot of exemption permits, but I didn't think we would have a permit for a hockey game, but maybe Leo. Sorry.
Yeah, no. It's not a permit situation, but how do you report a dangerous level in an arena?
Any resident can submit a request to 311 if they think that amplified sound or instrument sound is exceeding the levels in the bylaw, and then we would respond if there were persistent complaints about a particular event, and we would attend it at a later time.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Back to Kristen in the room.
Just first of all, I'm surprised there was any noise in the arena last night. I think for most of, but I think it's a really good point, and it's probably timely considering that we're hosting the World Cup next year in an outdoor arena. So maybe that's also, is the BMO field just automatically exempt from sound? I mean, I hope it is, so we can cheer on our teams, and so fans who are traveling from around the world can cheer on their teams. But maybe that also brings up a disparity in the process.
That's an interesting point. You got the Hotel X not very far away from BMO Field, and depending on what's going on. It wouldn't just be cheering. I think what Kim's talking about too is if you're in Scotiabank Arena, there's a lot of in-house produced audio content, shall we say, which is loud. And the same thing might be happening at stadiums.
Noise meter that they have?
There's that.
That they encourage you to.
That's what I was planning to use for Do West Fest.
Oh, is that fake? A fake noise meter, okay.
I can weigh in. I'm now 7 months removed from MLSE, but there would have been permits for sure, and because they do the outside congregation as well during games in Maple Leaf Square. Like I remember there being like quite a bit of conversation around permitting and working with as well the ownership group for the hotel. So I can try and track down more information or the right people to talk to if we want to discuss that further.
Great. Okay. I know Mike Tanner had a question, so I'll jump to Mike and then, I see. Okay, you know what? We'll go folks online. Sorry, I've got you on the screen here, but not directly in front of me, so I always got to turn the head here. So let's go Melissa and then Paul.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yep, you're good. Sorry.
Okay, out of habit, I don't know if I'll ever be able to unmute myself and not ask if I can be heard, even after we do robust checks. I am just thinking about venues that I've seen in Toronto more recently and like for the last few years across Europe that have a decibel counter. In a section of the venue, I'm thinking about Sounds Good in particular, sort of around like the Lansdowne, southern Lansdowne area, and what maybe that might mean as a model and like a bit of an in-between if we imagine who might be able to be a resource if there are staffing issues, but there needs to be a check of decibels. And I'm thinking in particular about Do West Fest, where there is this kind of interplay between the street and certain venues. If maybe there's an opportunity for some knowledge sharing between some of those venue owners and operators and maybe folks who are thinking about what it means to actually become acclimatized and acquainted with using certain new technological sound measuring materials.
Yeah, I think it's a great model for us to look at, and we'll definitely do some more research into that. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. I saw Paul was in the queue there. Paul, over to you.
Yeah, just a quick question. Since the bylaw is organized by the type of sounds, and this just came up in my mind, hearing about the sports example, since it's organized by type of sound, amplified sound or construction or whatever, where the noise is coming from a combination of sources, so a crowd plus amplified sound, how are you accounting for the fact that it might not be the amplified sound that's actually getting you over that limit? It might be a combination of different things that's actually causing that.
Through the chair, you hit on an absolutely important point, which is one reason why we kind of changed our location from 20 meters from the source to property line, because there's less impact of people being nearby. And our officers, while they're taking measurements, they're also including in, as part of that measurements, how much is people noise or background noise versus what is the predominant noise. If they're saying that the predominant noise that I'm hearing, because you have to use your brain at the same time you're reading a meter, is I'm reading the sound level, from the amplified. What I'm hearing below, I hear a little bit in the background, that would not be referenced. And they would also use that in consideration to raise or lower, advise them to lower the levels. If there's a lot of people noise, and they're getting high levels, and they see that this is mostly people noise, it's not the amplified noise, I'm not going to intervene and say, please lower that level. Those are the instructions our officers have, and they detail that information for ourselves. When we had the Christmas market, we had sound level measurements, but we found in many of those instances, the majority of the noise was from the people, from the public.
Is there any technological way to actually distinguish, or, because, I mean, no, right? So it's just additive. If there's a certain din of people and then you add amplified sound on top of that, it's going to show louder. Is that basically how it works?
I wish there was, because it would make our job so much easier.
And then I guess the last question I would have is there any recourse for, someone who's running an event who believes that the sound is not the fault of their amplified noise, but rather, some mix of crowd noise and amplified noise? Like, how do they prove that to you or show that?
They can discuss it because in each of these events that are being monitored, our supervisors there, if there's any questions, my phone is always on. So they can the supervisor and or even the applicants can contact me and have some discussions. We recognize that these are challenging and it's difficult, and we try to be absolutely fair, which is the exact reason why just standing out there with the meter and coming up with a number isn't absolute, because you're absolutely correct. You could be standing in a location right next to a generator, and you're measuring the generator, not the amplified sounds.
Good points all around. Okay. Okay, we'll go Sarah, and then we'll come back here.
How many people come to do SFest?
We're expecting between 700,000 and 1 million.
Okay, so that is, if you look at the criteria, that puts you at a high level, right? However, that is not factored in terms of the value to counter that many people are going to come and, in theory, enjoy the event because they're attending it. So we're counting noise complaints as a negative, but that population isn't being tabulated as a positive. So I would ask for consideration that attendance year over year be factored into the positives, not just a sound measurement, but actually the impact on a community from a positive perspective. So.
Very valid point.
They're less likely to fill out a form saying, I enjoyed this. They came to it, one would assume they're enjoying it, so.
As one of the co-founders of Do West Fest, I thank you all. A question very specifically, we have a street festival that's 16 blocks long. We've got 3 stages. You've mentioned a property line a whole bunch of times. We don't have a property line. So just playing devil's advocate there, what's our measurement site from there? Because, we want to comply and we want to make sure we're on board and doing the right things, so.
That's where the discussions will occur. When you send us your plot plan, identify where you would make sense to take measurements, because I totally agree. If you're right on the property line, I'm not going to have an officer stand in front of a speaker and take measurements from there, because it's meaningless. I would probably have them go across the street or go to a location on the property line where someone could be impacted.
Yeah, all of our stages are on the street, so we're right in the thick of it. There is no property line to speak of.
Yeah, and our officers were also well trained, knowing that in the past the standards that were applied were 20 meters from the source, so they have to take that in consideration while they're taking their measurements.
Okay.
So there's still a level of nuance and decision making on the MLS, and I went to all the sound meetings over and over again, and we were trying to eliminate that as much as possible and have a yardstick. But it's good to know that's not a complaint. That's just letting everybody know that there's a back and forth, and there needs to be that back and forth, and it's really important.
Okay, that's my expectation. I mean, beforehand, our officers will maybe have agreed. This is where we will be standing, taking measurements. When our officers get there, they may say, no, they don't. It's going to be too many reflections, too close to a wall. There's a generator right next to me. It's not going to be fair. I'm going to relocate here. And I would hope that the supervisor at that site would be in contact with the applicant and saying, we're relocating just to let you know, and have those discussions.
Thank you. Yes, Jeremy.
Hey, just one more question about that lot line. So, when you register an event, you set your fence line. But if you're in a park, the edge of the park could be football fields away. So, is it at your fence line, or is it at the edge of the park, or where is it? Once again, kind of just we go what's sensible for the situation. And
my point is through the chair. My point is exactly the same as let's have those discussions beforehand. Because I agree. It depends where the speakers are placed. Depends also where if there's any residents nearby. Those are the types of things we'll be looking at. I mean, I'm not going to get too concerned if we're going to be impacting the noise of a couple of songbirds, downstream. What I'm interested in is resolving any or preventing any future complaints, from the public.
Okay, thank you.
Good stuff. Looking online. Yes, Tracy. Good to see you.
Thank you. Hi. Yeah, I think we talked about it last time, but I just wanted to mention it again, that if there is monitoring happening at an event and there's and the person from the city indicates that the limits are being exceeded, that the organizers of the event will have the opportunity to address the problem on the spot and not face, punishment or consequences. That there will be, that level of communication to allow organizers to address any issues as they're identified.
That's part of our operational plan. Our first steps are definitely not to issue tickets. Our first steps are to identify, confirm that, that these sound levels are in exceedance, and then have a discussion with, usually it'll be the operator, the DJ, whoever is operating the board, to lower it down, and then we will suggest, yeah, that's at a good level, keep it at that. And of course, what happens sometimes is 11 o'clock, 11:30, levels slowly start creeping up. I don't know why, but it just happens to be the case. And then our officers will try to tone it down. And if there's no cooperation, just let you know, we will issue our first thing, a notice of violation. And if there is no further cooperation after that, we'll start issuing tickets. I'm suspecting everyone here isn't interested in being in non-compliance, but there may be some organizations that maybe just don't care, and we have to respect the public.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, over to you.
I'm sorry, I've taken a lot of time on the mic, but I just want to acknowledge one other thing which came up in Ingrid's presentation about there was a suggestion to let's move events out of parks and into cities. And I sat in this room about 2 or 3 weeks ago at a festivals and events meeting where we were told we're going to have to move events off the streets and into parks. So I just want to acknowledge that there's obviously a disconnect there, and also just talk a little bit about the changing demographics of our city. Like since the pandemic, when people were kind of forced outdoors to congregate, it's a more prevalent thing that's happening. I think we need to understand that there's a desire for people, especially young people, to be outdoors, to be enjoying themselves. We have things like drinking in parks that have become legalized, and all of this kind of comes with a culture of music, not noise. I'll call it music, although, defined by the city as noise. So I just want to kind of just put that out on the table as something that needs to really be looked at carefully.
Perfect. Thank you. Doing another scan. I think we have fully exhausted it at this point. Very good. That's great. Thank you to staff for your presentation and your questions. I guess this would be the section where I open it up for any comments, additional comments. I know we did it all there, but anything that folks want to say?
I just want to
Sean.
say thanks to the MLS staff for sitting there and giving as much information and taking the grilling, because it is an ongoing growing thing, and it is going to, I think, probably change year over year. We're going to kind of keep refining it. So thank you very much.
Fabulous. Anyone online? Any commentary? Additional commentary? Not seeing any. Is there a motion to receive? Move to receive. Okay. Moved by John Carew. All in favor? Carried. Very good. All right. Item number 1. Done. Pardon? It's item number 4, the first item that we did. But yeah, that's number 4. So we'll jump back to the agenda as ordered, and this takes us into our item number 1, which is TMAC task team updates. I'm going to hear from a number today as well. Johnny, new space. Yeah. Okay. Is that what you want to start with?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're going to hear the first one from Johnny. He's going to take us through new space.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Mike Tanner and the music office staff, councilors, and esteemed members of TMAC. I'm happy to report on behalf of fellow New Space task team members, Kristen Gelfand, Jeremy Keston, John Carew, Umair Jafar, Benjamin Valakat, and Amy Therian. We have not met as a group since our last meeting, but we have continued our work asynchronously. We've been continuing our discussions with the Economic and Culture Division about adding rehearsal spaces and recording studios to the live music venues property tax subclass. And our task team members have been working to compile some relevant data and help update reports, including an inventory of rehearsal and recording spaces. We also had an initial meeting with the project soundcheck team, including planning department staff Kishmita Aurora, John Homsey, and Colin Wolf, who gave us an overview of their group's mandate to look at tools to preserve existing cultural space, as well as potentially creating some levers to recognize the way we're enjoying live music and that the ways we're enjoying live music in the city has been changing. But also recognizing that they're working within the planning scope and not really the more macroeconomic issues, which often pose the biggest challenges to the live music ecosystem. So we had a very lively discussion about that. A very interesting initial discussion, and we're looking to continue this work with them throughout the remainder of the TMAC term. And lastly, Wavelength kicked off our Toronto Music Community Hub study with 2 focus groups last month, including some members of the TMAC New Space task team, and we hope to release our report outlining the needs and wants of the independent music community across multiple genres and the potential desire for a shared space for performance, rehearsal, recording, networking, and more. We're hoping to release this by the fall. So that is our task team update. Thanks everyone for listening.
Very good. Thank you, Johnny. We'll see if there's any questions on that. But before, I have been informed by clerks that we just need our friends and colleagues online, committee members, if you could throw your camera on. Thanks, Kim. And Melissa, that's great. Just hitting quorum here. That must have done it. Okay, we're good. Back in the quorum. Good books with clerks. Thank you for your diligence. Any questions for Johnny there? All right, fabulous. Looks like we're good. Thanks for the update. We'll jump over to Kim in Phoenix for career development.
Oh, good. Phoenix is here as well. I'm happy to jump in and start. So we have a date now for the next networking event, which will be June 23rd. And this is the event that's focused on grassroots DIY event producers and alternative spaces. The goal, again, is to highlight non-traditional spaces and build relationships between them and grassroots promoters, highlighting that access to space is a key issue for the community. Jacqueline, could you remind me the location and timing? I think it's at It's Okay. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. It's okay from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Thank you. And then I will throw to Phoenix to give an update on our next event after that, which will be breaking down silos, which we did last year. And this will be sort of an update on that event in the third week of September out of Stacked.
Okay, we'll just throw over here to Jacqueline in the room, who'll give us an update on that.
Thanks. So yeah, the next networking event will be breaking down silos. We're aiming to do that towards the end of September. It worked really well last year to build relationships across the sectors within the music industry. We had about 80 people attend last year from all different sides, from live events to recording and everybody in between. And so it was a really great way of getting conversations going between folks who would normally never be able to connect. And we're hoping to expand that. We'll be inviting everybody from TMAC to come up with a list of attendees that you'd like to see there from your sectors. We'd obviously love to see everybody there as well. And hopefully you can invite different people than you invited last year. That was a really great way for everybody to have new people in the room. And then we'll also be asking the folks who attended last year to suggest somebody from their sector that should attend. So that will hopefully keep things growing and have new faces and people in the room. So we will circle back about that, and I'll be sending out details for that invite. But everybody is welcome to come to the June 23rd one in the meantime. So thanks.
Thanks, Jacqueline. Thanks, Kim. Any questions on that? I'm glad you're doing that again. I'm glad that's happening. Those are a ton of fun. So we'll all come out because it was just fabulous. All right. Then we will jump to the advocacy piece. Paul, this one, I'm going to throw it over to you on mine there.
Yes.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so I don't know. Jacqueline, I think maybe you have that slide I prepared.
Sorry, it says I can't share content all of a sudden.
Can Jacqueline get the screen share capacity?
Anyways, I'll talk about it.
It's coming, Paul.
Oh, good. Just quickly wanted to mention something that I'm starting. It's hopefully something I can scale over time, which is just a free legal clinic for artists and music businesses in the Toronto area. We can just go to the second slide, sorry. So I am a music lawyer. I often get inquiries from artists, small music businesses that are confused about basic legal issues that can affect them. A lot of these people can't afford even reduced legal rates. As I'm sure many people know, the economics of music and law don't really mix very well. And so a lot of what I often end up doing is helping people out of things that they shouldn't have done in the first place. And this is an effort to try to stem some of that by giving some free summary advice. Music copyright's confusing, music agreements are confusing. A little bit of guidance can go a long way. And there's existing programs in Toronto, to be fair, like Artist Legal Advice Services at U of T, but they take time to access. There's a screening process. They don't run all year. This is an effort to just make music-specific advice available to people more regularly. We have a clinic program at my law firm, so we're going to run it through that. We also run that with TMU, so we'll try to involve them as well. And one nice thing about doing this is that we can avoid, or we get the benefit of some rules of professional conduct of the LSO that help us get relief from conflict of interest rules. So yeah, that's the idea. 30-minute calls for Toronto area artists and music businesses once a week, Wednesdays at 1, first come, first serve, and there's some links. So if you have people who might benefit, please share this with them. If you know lawyers who might want to take part in it, please send them my way.
Thanks, Paul. That's awesome. Lots of head nodding in here. People like that. Very cool that you're doing that. And you've really married the advocacy and partnership piece there. So kudos to you. Any questions? Comment from Mike Tanner.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. That's a really valuable offer. I think maybe the call to action for TMAC members would be that when this is up and running now, Paul?
Yeah, the link is live. And yeah, it is up and running.
So call to action for TMAC members, since you all represent different parts of the ecosystem, would be to spread the word. And Jacqueline and I were discussing briefly this morning, finding ways for it to land up on our website as well, along with some other industry resources that we have. So, Paul, your office hours may have to extend from Wednesday at 1 o'clock until the following Wednesday at 12:59 p.m. You may get people hammering on the door, but that'll be a good problem to have. Thank you again.
For sure.
Perfect. All right.
That's the end of that item.
I think that's all of our task team updates. Did you want to jump in?
Yeah, just a task team update for the live music venues. You forgot about us?
Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
think you
Sorry,
were-
Mike. Sorry, Mike. Wasn't important.
You guys
Okay.
are always speaking.
That's okay. I know we talk so much. So a few updates. Unfortunately, the Dakota has sold and will no longer be a music venue. So that's a sad note to start. The ever mysterious Omacombo has forfeited on a $50 million loan and is up for sale. It's a bit of a mystery there. So just another note that we've just had a few venues fall by the wayside since our last meeting. Lisa is maybe going to give an update on how the Phoenix search goes and a few other items.
Well, Phoenix has its extensions. Thank you for asking. But we're also dealing with a building owned by a developer that isn't putting much into the building, so we're fearful that it's still going to have a roof in place after our extension. So we continue on the search. Just need to be appealing to the city to recognize, with the loss of some of these venues, there is a lot of things in the process once a new space is found, including heritage reports, including the city rezoning application requirement for a space I'm looking at is $60,000. So at a certain point, we're not a big developer. We're not talking about building 48 stories. To have these kind of punitive things in place when we've got a live music sector that is falling apart, and I don't think I'm being dramatic by saying that, is a big concern. Losing those two venues, I don't want to create more drama, but I happen to know confidentially of two other spaces that are going to be sold, one of which is no longer going to be a live music venue. Jury's out as to whether or not the other one is. At this point, I don't know how to get this particular issue elevated to a point where it's getting talked about in council meetings at the level of we're in trouble. So all these other efforts will be for naught if artists have no place to play. And that's where we're getting to. It's a problem. So I have to suggest that at every level, including with the mayor, that we need to start having some direct conversations about something that makes great economic impact to the city, but is potentially going away to a great extent. So for us, we're still standing. There'll be others that will not be by the end of this year. Like I said, I know this to be fact. And so everything that we've talked about, no point in worrying about things like noise control. We have no venues. We have to tackle, the big problem here. And the city has to look at ways, at the very least. I know there's no budget, and I know the city's broke. I know all these things, but the city has to figure out a way to get rid of the obstacles so that where there are opportunities to bring some of these venues back, or even to find new spaces, that there's a clear runway to do so.
Thank you for that. I'm going to come back to that, but we're going to jump to John.
Thank you, Chair. To that point, maybe I'll jump in. Can we ask planning to come back to us, and if a facility is fortunate enough to find something, that we can get a report of what those costs are? I mean, it scares me to think that a venue that Lisa is looking at is a $60,000 investment with no certainty on getting the rezoning into place and meeting all of that stuff. It'd be great to have an understanding of what those costs are, and if there is a way of designating this sector as having some consideration in the planning process and the fees that are associated with this to keep this sector alive and well in this city. So I'm just asking, Mike, maybe that's a question to you, whether we can reach out to our colleagues in planning and brief this committee on what those costs and what those hurdles, if I can use Lisa's words, are in fact, if somebody happens to be fortunate enough to find a facility that they could relocate to.
So what I'm going to do, I think Mike's working on a motion. I don't know if a motion's necessary. I'm kind of looking around the room here, but city planning is doing a fee review right now as it relates to fees associated with development. And that's a really good point. It's a reminder for all of us, roughly 30% of the cost of a unit of housing in the city of Toronto right now is charges and fees. Very expensive. That can be a barrier, and it's different when you're, necessarily a developer and you're amortizing costs over a lot of different units, although it's still very prohibitive to delivering housing that people can afford. So the city is looking at that right now as it relates to venues and going through a rezoning process, and you inadvertently getting tagged with some of that stuff. I think it is worth consideration. And in addition to just getting an update on what they're doing, I think it would also be very valuable for them to hear from us and your experience. So Mike's kind of scribbling away here. We might have a motion to move on that front, but I think the ask is open up some dialogue as it relates to live music venues and the fee review, which is underway right now with city planning and city finance, which might be the other piece there, because I think they're actually kind of leading the charge on that, and engage with the committee as they go through that process, which is coming back a little bit later this year. So thank you for that, and thank you for that. And yeah, so it's not an email, but give you a few minutes with that. Maybe we'll sort of, is there any other comments on the item? Because we can move to another item, come back, and then you can move that motion, John.
I just want to say, John, I do have we're using Bosefield, so not all the costs are necessarily city costs, but I've got a pretty good idea of the costs involved in trying to move forward a new space in the city. The reports require what it costs, who the consultants are. It's hefty. The only thing there's a few things that fall within the city purview, heritage being one, rezoning being another, but there are other reports required in terms of environmental, et cetera, that are also really, really high and pretty prohibitive, I would say, for most venue owners, not so for developers that are, dealing in the billions.
And Lisa, sorry, yeah, I agree. And to the chair's comment that, in the housing sector, we can spread it out over a number of units that a developer can take that on. Here, we are talking a single entity. So those costs are absolutely focused in on one rather than over the cost of the project.
That's the actual cost of rezoning.
So that should say where I said zoning review, should say rezoning.
Just say planning fees, application fees, keep it broad.
More general.
Doing it real time on the fly here. Hila, did you want to jump in as our developer?
No, I wish it was that easy. Unfortunately, we don't have billions to do any of that either. But what we have talked about, I think the motion will reflect that there's costs from the city, and then there's actually like preparing a submission, to Lisa's point, which is different. I mean, one of the things we've talked about from the New Space Task Team forever, to bring it up, is a list of city facilities, city land that could, even through an RFP, be brought up, and that hasn't happened yet. So maybe for this term of TMAC, a wish list item.
Agreed. Yeah, what can I say about that? I agree. Okay, yes.
I'm just wondering if the music office has ever explored some of the things that are happening in Europe with adding levies to ticketed events on major, larger music experiences to help support some of these smaller grassroots arts organizations.
Yeah, I'm aware of some of those things, but we haven't explored implementing it or piloting it here. It's something we should probably take up, a deeper dive. What that could mean, who it could affect, what the process would be. Is it a exploratory, limited time, limited scope? Let's talk later.
Throwing my head around to the WebEx. Not seeing any. So just while we give clerks a chance to punch that up, if it's okay with the committee, I would suggest that we, pardon me? Yeah, hold the item down. Yep. And yeah, you want to do that?
Yeah,
We're on item 2 then, which will be music sector, present challenges and opportunities. We're kind of hoping folks that can identify ways the City of Toronto could help support the sector. We just did a couple there. And I think Gila's point about list of lands that might be available for this stuff, something we should continue to push on, as well as Sarah's point about looking at levies on bigger programmatic events that could be funneled into supporting more grassroots music initiatives. Any other comments under this? Music sector, present challenges and opportunities? Lisa?
Something else that Johnny and I talked about earlier that the UK is doing is when it does come down to heritage, our original requirement for a heritage proposal, we now just need a heritage level letter, was $27,000. So as you get into older buildings, one of the things that there's a very real cost involved, but at the same time, heritage in Toronto historically isn't protecting anything other than the facade of the building. As far as I could tell, you see all this development where they've kept the bank front and build up. In the UK, heritage actually is about the actual usage of the space. And when you think about a place like the Phoenix, where in 1964 it was the German Harmony Club, it became the Diamond Club, since '91 has been the Phoenix Concert Theater. That's over 60 years of heritage use that is not even really a discussion in terms of tearing it down. That wouldn't simply never happen in the UK.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, Lisa, that's something that I think the phrase that I've seen come across, and this is originally something I learned through somebody on one of Wavelength's panels, it's intangible cultural heritage. And it's where not just the built form, the facade, the staircase, the bar, whatever, but the actual use that takes place. And so that cuts across, it's not just music venues, it's culturally specific grocery stores or independent coffee shops or bookstores or something that is not about the built form. It could be a dive bar, but if it's near and dear to a community and it's lasted for a while and it has created intangible cultural heritage, it is valued in some parts of the world. Not many, but some. And something I've always been interested in is whether there are any mechanisms available to protect intangible cultural heritage in the city. The only two I've ever come across, there's something in Australia called the Burra Convention, B-U-R-R-A, and there's varying shades of UNESCO designations that sometimes focus a little bit more on what is happening than where it's happening. And to my knowledge, I don't know of any city in Canada that protects intangible cultural heritage that way. Do you know? Right. There's a book by Sarah Gwendolyn Ross called Intangible Cultural Heritage and the City, which is a very interesting book. I encourage anybody interested in this subject to read it. And by the way, it reads a little bit like a litany of what happened to Toronto music venues in the aughts and the teens here. There are a lot of examples of the government and the Matador and other things that are no longer with us for varying reasons. Not all of them have got to do with the lack of protection for intangible cultural heritage, but some do. And it's a good book. Sarah Gwendolyn Ross, I believe, is a prof in the Maritime still, eh? Yeah. Anyway, thank you for bringing that up. I just wanted to, well, I've got the mic, as it were. People are looking around the room sometimes when that idea of city-owned properties comes up, and is there a list that is being hidden? There isn't. There's not a lot of properties, and this is what we get from our colleagues in corporate real estate management, CREM. There are not a lot of suitable state of good repair properties in the right parts of the city that are not already spoken for or leased out for the next number of years or already in some way not available. There's a short list. We've seen one of around 30, which was then filtered down to around 6 or 8 to look at, and our colleagues in CREM are starting to explore where those are. One other thing, obviously, when you talk about city-owned properties, the first 2 that came up on the top of the list I saw most recently were in the residential zone. So that's not helpful. So it also has to be in an area that is appropriately zoned for entertainment use. If it's a rehearsal or recording studio you're interested in opening, then it can be an employment zone. So that is just to reassure people that, yes, this discussion about city-owned property has not been forgotten. It's not gone away. People are working on it, but there is not a vast quantity of key-ready spaces that, you know, can be produced like a rabbit from a hat. We will update you as that stuff moves along. It's an important subject, I know, to all of you.
What about venues that are not in state of good repair? Are there venues that, like, an owner or operator could fix up or rebuild? That would be like a list of those type of venues?
We've asked for that as well, because I think initially the list was scoped in a way that didn't recognize that certain people in the private sector have capital and resources to put into rehabilitating something, even empty land. So we are getting a broader remit from that request because of that. We don't need to be prescriptive or pejorative as a city in saying, oh, here folks, here's a little list, you know?
Thanks, Mike, for that update. That's good to know that you've seen a list and it exists. Based on Lisa's comments, I was thinking more about sort of land that either hasn't been developed or is a parking site that's been sort of identified as a high potential site, maybe even zoned residential, but could be rezoned mixed use. And there's a creative mixed use something that happens there.
Yeah.
I think that might rest with Create TO. I know we've talked about them, but nothing has been forthcoming, but maybe a reminder for our group to sort of dust that off.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think it's a good idea for anybody on TMAC who's interested in this, whether it be a particular task team or just people who are interested in this subject. We can arrange a meeting with CREM and Create TO where this discussion can happen in real time. It doesn't necessarily need music office staff to act as intermediaries here. And in fact, I think sometimes that may slow the process down. So leave that with us, Gila and Jeremy. We'll organize a meeting with appropriate staff for any of you guys who want to attend, and we can sort of collaboratively move the ball down the field a bit then.
It was actually Councillor Bradford that introduced me to the term meanwhile use, which is the other thing about that sense we've talked about with so much frequency, and with the delays and delays and delays with condo development. Meanwhile can now mean, 10 years. In fact, at the nighttime economy meeting a few weeks ago, the new Rogers Stadium, they're talking about a meanwhile use at Downsview that could be 30 years out, because that's how far that development is going. So that too has become something that has changed significantly. I think since you and I spoke about it, it was not a term I was familiar with. It's something I talk about all the time now, because when you look at spaces, not thinking music here, but if you look at the Toronto Star building and the fact that the immersive Van Gogh F1, et cetera, what's that been going on now, 6 years? In a building that otherwise would have been dormant. So that becomes a list that is great for a bunch of reasons in terms of repurposing. It's not just for venues, but for the property owner, for the developer, and for the city, because those spaces at least get animated, as opposed to empty space like the medical center beside the Phoenix, which has lots of vagrancy and regular break-ins and things that become big problems when you just leave a big old space empty.
That's right. Okay, any other comments? Yes, Melissa, over to you.
Hi. I think I also want to bring everyone's attention as well. And I mean, this is a topic that I'm sure a lot of members in our group could just really talk about at length, but it makes me think about even mentioning places like the government and thinking about the Silver Dollar Room, and how in a lot of ways the narratives of those spaces are tied to the way that local media in Toronto over the past several decades has an incredible track record of covering and featuring those spaces in a way that 10, 20, 30 years down the line, when we or groups like us are trying to think about what cultural designation looks like, protecting local media gives us the evidence and gives us the facts that enable us to continue to tell the story that these spaces have mattered to the cultural identity of the city. And I think it's just feels like an important opportunity to bring up that in the absence of that, that all of our DIY ecosystems are tied. Local media, which are oftentimes the only places that have the bandwidth and, frankly, the interest to talk about things that are happening at a grassroots and community level, also end up fitting into how we strategically plan for things that might seem relatively far away, like kind of venue procurement, and that. Yeah, I feel like sometimes it's discreet, but it is really important. And I think the other side of it is that in the absence of that, if we do need to think about, to Sarah's point, oftentimes we hear stories of what it means to experience a lot of tension when it comes to noise, or maybe wonder about how spaces are actually being used effectively. They're challenging stories that we hear, as opposed to the many, many positive and triumphant and really exciting experiences people have with live music in the city, that in the absence of local media oftentimes gets turned into data points, which also have the possibility to be manipulated. So I think it's sort of a bit of a sprawling but important point about what it means to tell stories and preserve them. And I think a real civic responsibility for that to happen in a way that then makes all of our policy-oriented projects more possible, because there is something to refer back to. And that is something sort of on the minds of our group.
Thanks, Melissa. Any other comments? Okay.
Just a quick note here. We're trying to wrap by 4 if possible, or if not that shortly thereafter. And I just wanted to mention that had this been done, on a patio with beverages, this discussion of sector health might be a little more free-flowing and open, and people just kind of sharing ideas or concerns or thoughts from all parts of the sector. But given that we don't have that situation here, I would encourage members online and here in the room, if you want to share things with us or in a kind of in another forum, task team meetings, we can certainly bring these ideas up. And not let them get lost. If anybody had things that were prepared that you wanted to say and maybe won't get a chance to say them here and now.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, there you go. It is patio season. Great. Okay, I'm going to suggest we wrap on that item, which was item 2. Motion to receive the discussion. Okay, motion to receive, moved by Lisa. All in favor? That carries. We're going to jump back to item number 4, which was, of course, our first item. Yes.
I believe there is a motion.
That's why we're jumping back.
Back to 4?
So you can move that.
1.
Oh, we reordered it. Right, very confusing. So it is now officially item 1, and John Carew has punched up a motion here. You can read it on the screen. John, you want to speak to the motion for a second, or as read?
We do find space out there that is affordable in terms of the process, the reports that are required, and timely. A venue or an operator can't be out months and years to try to go through the process, and I think this motion reflects that.
So thank you for that, John and Lisa and Hila. And if everyone's comfortable for that, John moves the motion. All those in favor? Seeing show of hands. Very good. That carries, and so we'll have our friends from City Planning and City Finance to come in and join us at our next meeting. All right, and so then that would be item as amended. Fabulous. So motion by Johnny to move the item as amended. Right here, yes. All those in favor, show of hands. That carries. Item number 1 in the books. Complete. Very good. All right, which takes us to item 3. No? Yeah, no, we just did that. That was our wide-ranging discussion. Yes. We're good. Yes, I'm on it. That takes us to Sarah Jarvis and joined by Jeremy from Destination Toronto, who are going to give us an update on the Organization Markets Toronto. They have a slide show. IT is just going to get that going. They're going to plug in.
I'm actually just going to share.
Sharing in the WebEx. Sorry, IT. We're sharing in the WebEx.
It was IT's recommendation.
Sarah, thanks, and Jeremy, thanks for doing this.
So if you could just give me permission to share, thank you.
We're working on it.
Just a moment. Okay, thanks T-Mac, you all know who I am, but I'm really just the backup singer today. I'm here to present our main
No one
event.
wants me to sing.
Jeremy Maunder. Jeremy's Director of Content and Communications at Destination Toronto. This presentation came out of a previous discussion just in terms of how Destination Toronto positions music in our marketing, and we felt that it might be helpful for the group to hear this presentation just broadly, our brand positioning, our approach, and how we include music in that. So over to you, Jeremy.
Thanks, Sarah, and thank you to the committee for having us here today. What we'll do is we're going to take you through just at a very high level the approach that Destination Toronto takes as it relates to our marketing activity and how we go to market. For those that are familiar, apologies if this is a bit of a repeat. And then we'll speak more specifically to how music is communicated within our marketing initiatives. And then I'll throw it over to Sarah and she can talk to the committee a bit about how to work with us, how to reach out to us, some of the forums and things that we have available to the greater community. So we'll start off with, and we use this slide for almost every presentation that we do. So our purpose at Destination Toronto is to ignite the visitor economy and enrich and empower communities. So there's 2 points there. One is connected to the business objectives of the visitor economy and tourism in the city. Second to that is enriching and empowering our communities. So looking at the more values-based approach that we take to our marketing activity and how we communicate and connect with the larger community and the visitor economy. Speaking to the businesses, the hardcore numbers as they were in 2024, every year we publish a visitor economy study and the impact that tourism has on the greater economy of Toronto. And so in 2024, we brought in 9 million visitors, $8.8 billion of visitor spending, $13 billion of economic impact, 69,000 jobs, and $2 billion of tax revenue. And we will make this, if you haven't seen it yet, we can make this study available to anyone in the committee. Moving into our brand storytelling, the way that we approach brand storytelling is very integrated in its approach. So in 2025, we're going to be transforming our storytelling into something very bold, something that, as Toronto is having a moment right now, we will leave the Leafs out of it at this point. But as we're telling our story, we're looking to create a suite of brand assets, playbooks, toolkits, items that both ourselves and our community can use to tell the story in a cohesive way. We're also going to be establishing citywide welcome and information identities. So that's working with MTCC, GTAA, Billy Bishop, and the like, so that when visitors come into Toronto, they're greeted with an invigorating look and feel to the city and are really excited about the experience that they're going to have. So our brand position is that Toronto is a global city that is distinctly Canadian. We have been working on this brand position for a long time. It was released this year, and as it turns out, it is super timely. So I'd like to say that's not coincidental, but here we are. So for the next slide. And we have the brand promises. It's just under the brand position, and that is reflecting the world and changing it. So understanding that as an organization, we don't own the brand. We're not like Tide or CPG products. We reflect the very best that Toronto has to offer from a visitation perspective and a consumption driver perspective as well. And we also look at the collision of cultures. So Toronto has 250 plus cultures that live and experience the city, and it's the creative collision of those cultures, whether it's through music, through food, other experiences, attractions, and the like, that kind of create the really special place that it is today for both visitors and for locals alike. So the brand pillars that we communicate, and you'll see as I go through this presentation, it's kind of a bit of a funnel. So we start kind of up here, what the organization does, and then we'll work down to kind of more tactical marketing objectives and where music fits in. So where Canada shows up boldly. So what you'll see in these pillars is that they sit at a broad global marketing level. So we're talking to both leisure audiences, and we're talking to business events audiences, and we're talking to leisure trade audiences, so tour operators, travel agents, and the like. So here we're looking at Toronto as the economic, innovative, and cultural heart of the country. I won't read through everything here, but looking at the festivals, sports teams, music, startups, cultural collisions, and it's about us as a collective making a statement to the world about who we are and how we show up. And we're different makes better. So again, you've seen me, I've mentioned a couple of times about the collision of cultures. So we're not a melting pot. We really pride ourselves on cultural distinctiveness and having that distinctiveness work together to kind of create something really special, whether it's in the business events side, the tech, health sciences, music, or in the culinary space. I like to use Quetzal on College Street as a good example of that. So we have a Hungarian Japanese chef that's running a Mexican kitchen in Little Italy, essentially. So it's a really cool conflux of cultures that come together. And if you've not been, you should go. It's a fabulous evening of food, and you'll smell like a campfire when you leave. Next slide. Thank you, Sarah. And where global meets Canada. So this is speaking to our international audiences, our U.S. audiences as well, and even our further afield domestic audiences as well, where you can get the very best that Canada has to offer in this city. And Toronto, from an international perspective, is one of Canada's key gateways to explore the country. So we take this message, and when we're talking to our further afield markets internationally, we use this as one of our brand pillars to tell that story. So the 2025 Global Marketing Plan, you can go to the next slide. Here are the markets that we are active in. You'll see it's color-coded here, but I will provide this deck to you so we can kind of go through that. But we're primary, one of our key markets remains the United States. We're active in Canada very prominently, and we are just are diversifying our markets and providing further support for Mexico, Germany, and the UK through our travel, trade, and media relations and some business events activities.
I'll jump in there just to say we were active in those markets pre-COVID. We paused that activity, and so now we're resuming it. So just context.
Thanks, sir. I'll go through this very quickly. So it's a small different approach to our regional marketing activity, or our international marketing activity. So in the UK, where we were just specifically in England, we now are in the UK and Ireland. Western Europe includes Germany, which is our primary market, then also the Netherlands, Switzerland, and Austria. And then Mexico remains our primary North American market to the south. Our leisure marketing activity. So this is a bit of a repeat of the previous slide, so I won't go through this in detail, but as I mentioned, the US remains a very key market to us, so a lot of the activity that we're producing and engaging in will remain in the US. In Canada as well, from a consumer direct perspective. The international markets on the previous slide are supported by media relations, travel, trade, and business events activities, so we are not in a consumer direct we don't support those markets through consumer direct activity, mainly because it's very, very expensive over there and we only have so much money. So we concentrate on Canada and the United States from a consumer direct perspective. Next slide. And here I'll show you very quickly. This is our 100% brand anthem. I'm not sure who has seen this in the room. Anyone? No? So we'll show it to you today. So this was produced as the foundation for the work that we're going to be doing across our business events and leisure activity in Canada and in the US, and where it's appropriate internationally. I won't say any more than this. We'll let the video kind of do the talking for us.
I'm hopeful the sound works, but we're going to give it a go.
No hesitation. Toronto's all in.
Nope. No sound.
No sound.
No sound. Unless they can hear it at home, but.
Okay. We will leave this with you, and you can take a look at it. Pardon me?
I'm going to try and play it sound from my computer, at least. We'll do that.
Thanks. That was we're.
I'll get it.
Oh, good?
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's, we're really proud of that. And, as the video says, we're going to be all in 100% in 2025 with a very bold, very confident story and letting the world know that, we're here and, we're open for business and we're excited to have the world visit. The editorial purpose is underneath that, so that's our foundation that we're going to be working with, and so that's a 90-second video that will have like 30s and 15s and 6s and banner ads and a whole slate of things, but that's the creative foundation from what we're working with. Connected to that is our editorial strategy, which is fueling curiosity. That is exactly what it says. I won't go through the narrative here, but the idea is that when we publish anything, whether it's a blog, a social post, we're creating video content or banner ads, we want it to pique curiosity in whoever is consuming the content, our audience, and hoping that it gets them deeper into our websites and our other platforms where we're delivering our message. Our key messages underneath that fueling curiosity, where everything is, as I mentioned, is integrated storytelling. So music is a part of that, along with culinary and attractions and all the other stuff. Is local scenes and epic events, globally inspired food and nightlife, and Canada at our doorstep. And so, as you can see, when we send over the deck, that also relates back up to our larger pillars that we have created for all of our content across leisure and business events. Here, I'm just going to skip over this because this is just a chart of everything that we do. You can kind of review it at your leisure, but we wanted to give you an idea of the ecosystem that we work under as we go to market throughout the year. Everything that is always on, connected to some of our campaign activity as well. And so we'll share this with the community post-meeting. As I mentioned, we are always on. So looking at this, everything that we do is built around interconnectivity, so looking at search, video, PR and MR, our ambassador program, our social media activity, our e-newsletters, contesting, photography, partnerships, and blogs. All that is connected underneath our 100% brand strategy for 2025 and probably through 2027 to kind of create a holistic and very powerful story that we're telling about the city. Connected to that, just for one moment, if anyone has any photography that they would like to submit for our content hub or our digital assets, we would happily and most gratefully take it, because we're always looking for great images. We're out and we're shooting every year, but no matter how much we shoot, we're never going to get enough. So if anyone has anything, we will provide a link where you can submit any video, B-roll that you have, images, and we're happy to take it. Just please ensure that when you're filling out the rights piece of it, that you're filled out completely, because we have been caught in the past with that, so we prefer not to. We want to be respectful of everyone's rights and talent.
And I'll just add to that, there's sort of two tiers to the rights. There's rights for Destination Toronto to use it, but if we do have a media hub that anyone can log into and actually use our images, so if you can extend those rights more broadly, then you'll ensure that more people are actually using those images in their promotions of the city. So just a note there. Thanks.
Our always-on music storytelling. So this slide here speaks to our always-on activity. So this is these are the programs that we have going 365 throughout the year. First section you'll hear is our website. So as we look at music in the city and how we tell it, we use our website as kind of the core that we build off of for kind of social and our AI-generated travel assistant. And we look at SEO search, so search engine optimization that's organic and what folks are searching for. We also use paid search engine marketing as well to help us discover what people are searching for, whether it's music or otherwise. And so what we found on our website, our team does a fabulous job of finding and finding the little nuggets of market research that allows us to pull out not necessarily things that are high volume, but also things that have really high engagement. So if there's not high volume but high engagement, that can be equally valuable to us. So on our website, we'll be able to see, doing a quick search, 564 music events, 289 listings, and 159 blog posts. So that consists of long-form articles as well as some landing pages as well. And all of those, and there's just a quick example there that I took a screenshot of some content that we produced. And that's all kind of connected to the music story in Toronto on a number of different levels, whether it's like huge events or kind of small under-the-radar live music venues. Connected to that is our social media, and so we use music as one of the narratives throughout our social media content. We're going to be starting to kind of look at that a little bit closer and doing a deeper dive into kind of how we can do that a little bit better. But we do try to provide a broad integrated storytelling where even if we're talking about culinary music as a part of that, if we're using a track, music as a part of that, and we try to find Toronto content producers for TikTok overlays and stuff like that. And then we have GuideGeek, which is our AI travel assistant that lives on our website. It lives on all of our social media platforms, except for TikTok, so Instagram and Facebook essentially. And it's conversational. It will tell you anything that you want to know about coming to Toronto, music in Toronto, food in Toronto. It's, again, I always qualify it's not perfect. It's kind of like a student. It teaches. It's still learning. It's about a year old. But we've had really great success with it, and we're really invested in continuing to help. We've named it Six, so we've helped Six grow and learn, and as it grows and it learns, it gets more and more intelligent as it relates to all the things that Toronto has to offer.
It's one, but it's not recommending Baby Shark, right? It's more evolved in its music taste.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Just making sure.
Who's that? So moving into some of the more campaign-specific activities, I know that time is tight, so I will talk quicker. So this is our U.S. Summer Brand Partnership, and this is with Atlas Obscura. Atlas Obscura is a U.S.-based, place-based content hub. It connects directly to our audience, specifically, which is a very affluent audience. But they have the top travel podcast in the country with 43 million downloads. They have 14 million monthly web page views. They have 1.4 million subscribers. They're a Emmy award-winning content producer. So they're a really great partner of ours. And we're partnering with Danny Shattuck and Shad to create a moving monument, which is a musical instrument that you can see there that is controlled by a robot. And we're really proud of this partnership. It's been 2 years in the making. It's going live in June. And I will play a quick video, 45 seconds, of the, if it works.
We're going to try.
Try.
Jeremy, if I can just interject with apologies to the whole committee. I have childcare pickup, which charges by the minute, so I got to run. Our vice chair stepped out for an appointment as well, so I am going to tap Lisa with a motion. Oh, if everyone's okay with Lisa taking us through the balance by a show of hands and nods, consent, I'll turn it over into Lisa's capable hand. But only one, because the other one's busted. Okay, good to see you. Yeah, no, it's okay. All right, we'll see you soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. This is what's known as a meanwhile use.
So the Moving Monuments program is our keystone program in the United States for 2025. It's going to culminate with an activation in New York City, just outside of the Whitney Museum under the High Line. In September, and we will have a full content slate of video and long form storytelling throughout the year, starting in June, and it will go through October. So we're really excited for this, and we're happy to share with the committee more content and information as it kind of rolls out. So with that note, do you want to do just?
Yeah, I'll do a quick update. Just no one's seen that before, right? That was like our first.
Actually,
I haven't even seen that before.
You were the first ever
well done.
to see it. That is a rough cut of some behind-the-scenes content, so it will change a little bit. But I thought it would be interesting for the community to see it. So that will not be in the deck that we provide. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so Music Compass, you may recall this was a pilot program that we partnered with the City of Toronto on last year. There were 68 venues featured with sidewalk QR codes across the city. Those are the neighborhoods that we highlighted in last year's pilot. We had some good clicks, certainly. We heard some great feedback from the venues that were participating. So we've, again, in partnership with the city, we're relaunching it for 2025, but we are actually expanding it to some new neighborhoods. So there'll be 4 new neighborhoods that will be featured. Lisa?
Sorry to interrupt. We need 7 people to turn on their cameras because we don't have quorum right now.
Okay.
So if we can just quickly switch.
I don't have the power to switch, do you? Or do I have to stop sharing? I have to stop. Okay. I will try. All good. Just stop sharing.
So we need 3 people to share. Also up there.
Phoenix is in a voiceover record, so likely cannot turn on camera.
No, we just lost one. Okay.
So if we lost quorum?
Well, it's either Tanya West, Anita, or Councillor Malik, because you've got Jacqueline and Sarah here, and Phoenix is
See if I can shoot a
studio.
quick text. You did? Okay. Well, if we need all those three, then no matter. Phoenix. Oh,
She's
Phoenix
there.
is there?
So one more person.
What if I turn on my camera? Will it work?
Ah, very clever.
Do you have multiple personalities?
That?
Oh. No. First time chairing, I'm messing this all up.
That? Now you had Doc's appointment. I'm just trying to reach a couple other people there. Yeah, you do that, I'll do somebody else.
Can we get Melissa back?
She had a hard stop at 3:25.
Oh. I don't think we can proceed without quorum, can we?
We can't proceed without quorum, so we have 30 minutes to gain quorum at the time that we lost quorum. And if we don't achieve quorum, then the remaining items on the agenda will get moved to the following meeting.
That is not a bad thing with this particular agenda. It depends how close they are to finishing. Can they finish the current item?
We can't do a vote on it because we don't have quorum.
So it can't
Yeah.
even receive.
No.
Well, what happened? Oh no, Paul's still there.
I'm just trying to reach a couple.
Do we have to do the entire presentation again, or can we pause this and I can present an abridged version on the next meeting? Yeah. Cluster. Yeah.
We do have one other item, though.
The other item was staff updates, which we have as a sort of a standing item every meeting, which we just migrate the things we are going to talk about here into the October meeting, which is no big deal.
To get quorum, and the fact that we're a half hour deep into the provincial budget, which I'm hoping to catch. Can we, Madam Clerk, and again, I sort of ask for your direction, can we suspend the meeting due to lack of quorum, or do we simply adjourn the meeting to lack of quorum?
I.e., we don't have to wait for 30 minutes to determine our immediate future, right? I know, that's what I'm thinking. I think, like, we try to keep these to 2 hours, and we're already past that, so.
So members can leave if there's no quorum. We will remain here as clerks to see if we gain quorum.
A little fatalistic.
One more.
Just
yeah.
more.
Just one more.
Mike, can I just ask that we just finish, we have a couple more slides. There's a couple key points that I would love to share with this group. It doesn't, can I just finish the presentation while we're just waiting for 2 minutes?
There's no harm in that. We just can't,
We don't have to vote on it, that's fine, but it's just.
we'll pretend like it never happened.
Share the good word.
We got one coming on here. Okay, Umair's going to jump on. That'll give us quorum. Yeah.
We just see one more person.
Got one coming.
Oh, yeah?
We got 6,
Okay.
8, 10, 12, 13. That'll make it 14. If Umair joins, that'll be 14. Can we deputize staff?
There he is. No, he just has to turn his camera on.
Hello, folks.
Hello.
Hi, Umair. Can you turn your camera on? We want to make sure it's really you.
Well, it shows me that the camera is on. Wait, let me figure this out.
Technical issues.
How's that?
Not yet. There we
he
are.
is, yeah.
Woo! Let's get back on the slides.
Okay.
Doug Ford
Hello,
vows
everyone.
to protect Ontario for Donald Trump's tariffs with a record $232 billion budget. Got that much.
Yeah, where's it gonna go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Enough EV
Sorry.
plans.
All right, we'll bring this home. So as we're saying, Music Compass, successful pilot program in 2024. We are expanding it in 2025 to 4 new neighborhoods. Our goal is to have 126 venues included in this program. A little change this year. So with last year's program, Destination Toronto featured listings for businesses, whether they were members or not. We've shifted our approach in 2025 and launched a new membership program, which is free. So any Toronto business can be a member for free. You just have to simply fill out a form. And so with that, we are asking, in order to participate in Music Compass and have your listing featured on those pages, that businesses do sign up for membership. We have about 27% have said yes so far. Thank you to those in the room that have participated and signed up. I know there's a couple more to go. So we are working with the city to align with some of the BIAs that are included in this program for them to amplify and maybe hit the streets a little bit to encourage venues to sign up. We will continue to follow up with messaging and make sure that by the deadline of May 23rd, we have as many venues included and represented. That deadline exists because we need to program the QR codes and then get them out on the street. The second week of June is when the decals will hit the sidewalks. So that's the update on Music Compass. Just very quickly then to run through the end, how to work with us. We have a marketing playbook that we publish on our site that provides guidance in terms of our editorial approach and calendar and various forms that folks can actually submit to have their content included or pitching our media teams, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said, membership is now free, so lots of opportunities to have any and all venues and folks that work in the music space to be represented and have a voice at our table. It's important that we represent as many folks as possible through the work that we're doing. We're stronger together, and we need those voices at our table. So Again, we'll send this out following the presentation so that everyone has it, and we're here for questions. And that's that.
People that are on screen. Go right ahead, sir.
Hi. Yeah, it was great. I liked the video, especially the underground party segment. That speaks to me. I've been traveling with our southern friends who are throwing out some strange vibes these days, and the conferences there have sort of been lightly attended, and I find that it's a big opportunity for us to now take that international audience and bring it here to Canada, and especially Toronto being a multicultural city, and we are kind of maybe one of the premier destinations in North America now for people to come to from Europe and from Asia. So is there other plans I saw that the plan was to sort of push this in the US, but is there plans to push it in other countries as well?
Sorry, before you answer that, Jamal, you have to put your camera back on because we're down. Quorum again. Sorry, Jeremy.
I don't know if you heard me.
Jamal, is it possible for you to put your camera back on? Did you say that Deputy Mayor was potentially getting back on or no?
She's on the screen, but yeah, camera's not on. That would help.
Deputy Mayor, is it possible that you put your camera on to reach quorum?
The question was so good.
Sorry.
I remember the question. So to answer your question, first as it relates to the U.S. audience, as we talked about in our presentation, it remains a critical audience for Toronto, and we want the U.S., whether they're coming for business or for pleasure, to feel welcome. And so that remains a tenet in the way that we're going to market and the story that we're telling to that audience. As it relates to the international markets and the opportunity there, we do see opportunity there. We also see greater opportunity in our domestic markets. So we are pulling some levers there to activate those markets. We are always going to go back into the international markets or on a bit of a quicker timeline. At this point, we have engaged our media relations activity more fulsomely. We've also engaged with our tour operator and travel agent community in the international markets as well. And we are working on some, in specific markets, on some business events activities as well. So while we are not in a consumer direct or doing or launching campaigns like we would in the U.S. In the international markets, we are looking at ways that we can take advantage of those business opportunities to bring people into our destination from those markets, and where we can do it in smart ways, we're trying to get them over here.
I'll just add to that as well. We work very closely with Destination Ontario and Destination Canada, and both those organizations do have activity in those markets as well. So while it may not be a Toronto message, it's certainly a national message, and we work with them, and they tend to include us in that messaging as well. So, and just on the point on the meetings and events, we're watching that closely, seeing where those opportunities are. I'm sure you've probably read in the news, there are some conventions that are actually moving out of the U.S. That's a huge opportunity for us, certainly, and folks from an international perspective that would normally have programmed in the U.S. are considering Canada as well. So we're making sure that we're at the table for those opportunities wherever possible.
John, you have a question?
In in light of the timing situation, and thank you for persevering and getting to the end, but I move receipt.
Okay. To defer the next and final item, which was the, sorry, one hand, which is the city staff.
Wait, what?
What?
That's the one.
Oh, don't do that to me. Okay, moving the motion. Carrie, all in favor? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Woo-hoo.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody
That
online.
was stressful.
Yeah. Thanks, Lee.